Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Jessica Recommends, where, of course, we are still talking about Halloween because now we are into October and it's time for our next Halloween topic. But first, I forgot to do this last week. So, what am I reading this week? Well, I did just finish Witchlings by Claribel A. Ortega. I adored this. This was so cute, really fun, very Halloween vibes. These witches live in a little town and they're basically sorted. So if you like that, the early Harry Potter books, that kind of thing, this is definitely for you. Super fun. Also reminded me of Witch Wars by Sybil Pounder. Really cute. So can't wait to dive into the second one, which is out now. And I actually listened to the audiobook. The book itself has cute illustrations of the chapter headings, which is really fun. But the audiobook reader was excellent. And there was a little music before and after and stuff like that. I love that kind of thing. So I did listen to the audiobook actually and highly recommend Witchlings. So I wanted to make sure we said that. But now I am listening to Jamaica Inn by Daphne du Maurier. If you're looking for Halloween recommendations, you could do worse than Daphne du Maurier. Rebecca, she did that one. My Cousin Rachel, which is like, is this woman a serial killer? The Birds, the original short story, The Birds, which is quite different from the Hitchcock movie. That's her, and I really recommend that. She did lots of weird, creepy things. This is sort of like her doing Dickens, and everyone really is very horrible. Just very squalid and weird, and I'm not even sure I like the main character. So we'll see how this goes. I am also reading Polistan by Neil Stevenson, which is the first book in a new series he's doing called The Bomb Light Archives. And I am really loving this. It's very Neil Stevenson. If you know, you know. So, and also, though, I had to talk about something because last week we did vampires and I left, well, just about every week after I finish a video, it's edited, it's loaded. I look back and go, oh my gosh, I didn't talk about this. One of my all-time favorites. How did I miss it? Or I will like be passing through my house and see like some beautifully displayed book that's like would have been perfect for that topic or whatever. But last week I had made a note to myself to include this. I was looking forward to it and still forgot The Vampire's Beautiful Daughter by S.P. Somtow. I adore this book. It is, I suppose, young adult, and it's quite thin. Um, it is a Native American boy who moves with his family to the big city down to live in LA because his mom has become famous writing a book of his grandfather's enigmatic native sayings and things like that. And they've sort of gone Hollywood with it, like his grandpa has, mom has, and stuff like that. And meets the vampire's beautiful daughter. This guy is actually a vampire. He wears leisure suits and, looks like he's just a movie producer or something, but he is in fact Dracula, and his daughter is making the decision. It is her coming of age about whether she will continue and live and die as a human or if she will become a vampire. It is just wild. It's so fun. I love this book so much. And I was like, oh, as soon as we get to vampires, I got to talk about this. It might be out of print. It might be harder to find. I've had this copy forever. And I see it on lists of like overlooked gems by people who know. So if you are in the know, if you think you can get your hands on a copy, absolutely do. The Vampire's Beautiful Daughter is an excellent vampire book, and it is very Halloween-y, really fun. So, but that was for last week. This week, we are talking about werewolves, even though you can't see the Wolfman on my shirt. He's somewhere down here, and I'm not going to stand up and point to things on my body. That's weird. That goes too far even for me. So we are talking about werewolves this week, though. And honestly, it's a little hard to find just straight up werewolf books in children's literature. So we are going to did branch out into maybe they turn into something else a little bit. But that classic Wolfman story, werewolf story is not huge in middle grade, which kind of surprised me. And now I'm wondering if I'm gonna have to write my own and fill that hole. So we'll see. But there are still some great books that are some favorites of mine. And I wanted to talk about this topic so I could talk about these books. So first of all, one of my favorite picture books from recent years, A Werewolf Named Oliver James. This is by Nicholas John Frith and is absolutely a charmer. I love this book so much. Since it came out, I have taken it into every one of my kids' classrooms at Halloween and have read it out loud to the class. He is the cutest thing in the entire world. There is a surprise ending, and just the art is so fun. Oh, it's me. I'm the werewolf. He is such a cutie. I love Oliver James. He stayed late for band practice at school and accidentally turned into a werewolf when the moon came out. So cute. So get a copy of Werewolf Named Oliver James if you love picture books, if you have someone you're reading books aloud to. Not werewolves per se, but The Wolves on the Walls by Neil Gaiman and illustrated by Dave McKean is an excellent spooky story. I love it so much. It's really fun. Dave's art is sort of acid trippy, and I kind of enjoy that. And my kids like to look and see, like, okay, this page is drawn, like this page is drawn with the wolves, but there's other pages that have photographs on them and things like that. It's all mixed medium. So it's really cool. It's a fun book. It's a really great read about the wolves and the walls. When the wolves come out of the walls, that's when you know your family's in trouble. It's really cute. And then Are You Scared, Darth Vader by Adam Rex has one of my favorite classic Wolfman depictions, although I love this little wolf man. He's even got the plaid shirt. He's the whole package. But of course, he's really just a child. But I do think the vampires and werewolves and the things in this book are super delightful. And this is honestly not just one of the great Star Wars. I almost said Star Trek. I almost became one of those people. This is not just a great Star Wars book, but this is honestly one of the better Halloween picture books of recent years. It is just to die for. The ending is so great. The pictures are gorgeous. Adam Rex wrote and illustrated it, and trust me, you know his work. If you're like, oh, Adam Rex, whatever, once you see it, you'll know who he is. He's done a million amazing things. So moving on into our middle grade, I cannot believe also last week I did not talk about Bunnicula, and we even have like the copy somewhere in this house that is like red velvet exterior with like orange sprayed edges so they look like a carrot. I mean, love Bunnicula by James Howe. Love the whole series, narrated by the family dog, as you know, if you've read any of these, but Holiday Inn was always my favorite growing up. This one is just the best because they are living with Bunnicula. They're well aware he is basically a vampire bunny, but he only sucks the juices out of vegetables, so they feel safe. So Harold and Chester, though, and Bunnicula get boarded at a creepy pet hotel while their owners are on vacation. And Chester, of course, the cat, becomes convinced that the two wire-haired dachshunds there are werewolves and spends the entire time trying to escape from Holiday Inn so that he can rid the world of these dangerous werewolves. It's hilarious. It's so funny. It's just spooky enough if you've got kids that really are not into the spooky aspect of Halloween. This is the way to go because you've got definite like Halloween vibes, definite like werewolf vibes, but it's never scary at all. So I love James Howe's books. Elementals, Ice Wolves by Amy Kaufman. So she did the Illuminae files in those books, and I just love her writing. And this was an arc I lucked out enough to get a year or two ago. Oh my gosh, no, more than that. Good heavens. 2018. Love this book. Really different, really unusual. It's a whole world. It's high fantasy. These kids, and I don't want to spoil anything, but there are shapeshifters of several kinds in these books. And I really enjoyed the world building. I always enjoy Amy's world building, and this was really fun and different. And I really loved this and loved the surprise and loved the sequels. But that one's Ice Wolves, so I pulled that one off the shelf. The Raven Heir by Stephanie Burgess. Same thing. This is a high fantasy. It's a whole other world. So it's not necessarily like a classic Halloween Wolfman, but these kids, they are triplets, and one of them is a shapeshifter. She can turn into all kinds of things. You can see the little spirit shapes there of different animals and things like that. And in order to save the kingdom, she has to be able to turn into all these different things. That's all I'll say about it. But this is a super fun book. I absolutely loved it. Stephanie Burgess did like The Dragon with a Chocolate Heart. She does great stuff for middle grade, upper middle grade, lots of fun fantasy books. Moving on into our YA. Okay. My copies don't match. It distresses me every day. But Will Shetterly's Elsewhere and Never Never. There's our wolf boy right there on the cover of Never Never, in point of fact. I adore these books so much. They are written in the shared world of Border Town, where it's sort of like magic pushed back, and now there are fairies that have crossed over and magical beings, and they all live in a place called Border Town, which is sort of implied to be like maybe New York, New York City. And people, kids like runaways, punks, musicians, and stuff like that will go to Border Town to sort of live the cool bohemian semi-magical lifestyle and stuff like that. And Elsewhere and Never Never follow the adventures of one guy who goes there looking for his brother who disappeared several years ago, and just people he meets. I love these books so much. They are so fun. They are great coming of age stories. They're funny. There's some really high stakes. And yeah, and there's werewolfing in them. Well, there's werewolf curse in them. Let's put it that way. So love these books. This is the original cover that I grew up with, and then I got a fancy new cover when they recovered it a few years ago, and never got the copy of Never Never. Now I don't know what the situation is with the covers, but pick your favorite, get them both. They really go together, and it's a 2-book series, Elsewhere and Never Never. Sarah Beth Durst, of course. When am I not talking about her books? Honestly, she should pay me. Um, Fire and Heist. They are not werewolves. They are were-dragons. So obviously, I love this. Also, it is a heist novel. Super great. And I also talked about last week with the vampires, Drink, Slay, Love, her book Drink, Slay, Love, which also has someone who is a were creature in it, but not a werewolf. And I love that. And I would not never spoil the surprise, but Drink, Slay, Love, also great, also has a shapeshifter, whatever you want to call it, a were being in it. And these are shapeshifters specifically of like sort of a crime family, and they are dragon shifters. This was super fun. I did not expect how this was going to end at all. Highly recommend Fire and Heist. Now, another thing that I was like, I can't believe I didn't talk about this last week, so I better make sure and talk about it this week. But moving from YA into adult, we've got Gail Carriger. So Gail, if you don't know, has created this whole steampunk world of Victorian England where there are airships and there is magic, sort of. Specifically, there are vampires and there are werewolves living amongst society. They hold titles. They have been around forever. Everyone, knows them. They are famous society people. But her main character, and I do not have the first book And I was like, where is even the first book? But the second book is Changeless. Her main character is soulless in these books. Her name is Alexia Terabody, and she supposedly doesn't have a soul, which means that if she touches a werewolf who has changed into wolf form or a vampire, they revert to being immortal during the time she is in contact with them. So for instance, in the first book, someone throws her into a cell with an absolutely raging werewolf. And so she just calmly sits there the whole time with one hand on this now naked man, being very Victorian and doing her best not to look. But she has to keep her hand on his naked flesh so that he will stay human and not eat her. I mean, they are so funny. They're sexy. Can we say that? They're spicy. Let's say that. They are a little spicy and just so fun. The characters are just indelible. Lord Macon, who's the leader of this wolf pack, so they all have a hierarchy. There's like leaders of the vampires and there's leaders of different wolf packs and all these things. Professor Lyle, I absolutely love him, who is his second in command of the wolf pack. Lord Akeldama, though, who is a very, very ancient vampire and the leader of London fashion, is one of my absolute favorite characters in literature. He is a fabulous vampire. I'm in every sense of the word, he is a fabulous vampire. I love him to pieces. And so the Parasol Protectorate is the name of the series. Changeless is the second one. Soulless is the first. There are 5 books. They're complete, but she's gone on and done other things with them. There are novellas and short stories that are available as ebooks with different like kind of side characters, and I just adore them. Alexa is so great. I love her. And you can see they're just a little bit steampunk. They go on airships when they need to travel. She's got her little goggles and her weighted dress so it doesn't float up in the air and things like that. And there's a ton of stuff about Victorian fashion in here and just wonderful. Love it. So if you are not into the spice, though, or are a slightly younger reader, she did The Custard Protocol. Etiquette and Espionage is the first book in that series, which is about the younger generation of these characters and going to school. And no, wait, sorry. These aren't the Custard Protocol books. I stand corrected. This is the Finishing School series. Custard Protocol is the next generation after Soulless. This is the generation before. These are the characters like parents or the characters when they are younger, and they are at a finishing school for fine young ladies where they are learning all kinds of things like, making mechanical dogs, how the proper way to pour tea, popular dances, and espionage, occasional assassination, that type of thing. Super fun. Love this series. Absolutely want a tiny little dachshund that is a mechanical friend named Bumber Snoot. I want him. He's so precious. I love him. So love that series. Love the Custard Protocol. I know it's the Custard something, the next series, and cannot think of what the first book is called, so forgive me for that. But if you look up Gail's name, you will find a whole wealth of delightful steampunk books starring tons of werewolves and vampires. And I talked last week as well about Laurel K. Hamilton's Anita Blake books. And specifically this one, though, there's vampires and werewolves and fairies and all kinds of things, I think, in these books. But this one specifically is dealing with issues in a wolf pack and someone trying to become the new alpha of a wolf pack. So if you like a little bit of spice and you like a book about werewolves fighting for power, this is your book right here. Blue Moon by Laurel K. Hamilton. I don't even think you necessarily have to read any of the others to follow this one. You might need to quickly Google who the main characters are, something like that, if they're not introduced in a way that you can follow. But this is my favorite of the series, so I had to recommend it again. And another thing I can't believe I didn't talk about last week, I was in such a hurry to show off my Dracula books. I think I was just so like, oh, look at my Icelandic copy of Dracula that I totally forgot. everything. But of course, the Sookie Stackhouse books by Charlene Harris, like Dead to the World, are about vampires and werewolves and things sort of coming out of the closet because there's been an invention called True Blood, which is why that's what this TV series was called. TV series was called True Blood because there is a blood synthetic substitute now available in grocery stores. And so vampires are able to sort of come out of the shadows and walk amongst the humans and things like that, which has also opened up the door for the fact that there are werewolves and there's were-leopards, were-tigers, and there are just shapeshifters. There is a guy in this book, one of my all-time favorite things is Dean, which is what Suki names the dog that she adopts, who later turns out to not be an actual dog. But there are some people that can change into pretty much anything. And I really enjoyed this series so much. I kind of struggled with the ending. It's a little bit disappointing if you're a fan of, the team, how there was the whole Twilight thing, like Team Jacob, Team Edward. I was very solidly Team Eric Northman. Little spoiler, it has been like over 10 years, so I figure I'm okay. But like I was Team Eric Northman. That did not go the way I wanted it to. But love this series so much. Did not super care for the TV series. I watched a few episodes and then I actually really like the characters, like who they cast, but when it deviated too much from the storylines that I loved in the book, I was like, I'm out. So, but now for our grand finale, we're got to talk about this. So, this is Blood and Chocolate by Annette Curtis Klaus. I love this book. I have read this book so many times. I actually discovered this book at a bookstore. I think I was working at a bookstore actually at the time. I probably was. I worked I worked at bookstores for quite a few years. I worked at Borders. But I discovered this book when I was really depressed and I needed something to read that was sort of bring me out of my funk. Discovered this book, was attracted to the word chocolate mostly on it. I'm like, a werewolf book that mentions chocolate. That's interesting. I want to read that. So I don't know how many times I read this book in the next couple of years. Like back in the day when we were moving around a lot and I was trying to get published and I was just super bummed about that and how slowly it was going and stuff like that. And so this was my comfort read for many, many years. And then they actually made a movie of this. No, I'm sorry. I have nothing but love for Annette Curtis Klaus, who wrote this book. And I have interacted with her online because we have several mutual writing friends and have gotten to tell her how much this book meant to me. No one ever brings up the movie, and that is fine. Pretty people cast in a movie that took liberties with the story that just became nonsensical. I mean, it took liberties to the point where literally you couldn't follow what was happening, and the plot in this delights me. It is a perfect werewolf novel. It is exactly what you would expect from a teen angst coming of age werewolf novel. This is what it is. If this is what you're looking for, this is what will give it to you. But that terrible movie was set in Romania. The book is not. The book is set in America. The movie was set in Romania, and I could tell that the cinematographer was just kind of done with the people or the dialogue. I don't know what the deal was, because there are long, slow shots of the Romanian countryside and the city of Bucharest and things like that, where you could tell that whoever was behind the camera was really in love with the scenery and not so much in love with what was happening with the people in front of him. So watching that movie, however, is what made me start thinking, oh my gosh, if I was going to set a story in Romania, this is not the direction it would go in. If I was going to set a story in Romania, I would do XYZ with it. I can't believe they set a story in Romania and didn't mention Vlad the Impaler and stuff. And that is where my book, Silver in the Blood, actually got started. So sometimes I tell when people are like, oh, where do you get book ideas? Like kids at schools, and they're like, where do you get book ideas? And I'm like, Well, they can come from anywhere. Sometimes you're just in the shower washing your hair, but sometimes you're watching a really bad movie that's based on a really good book, and then you think, I could do this better. And so I sometimes, without naming names, use that as an example of a bad movie that spawned a really great book, my book, Silver in the Blood. Because that is where that came from, is I was looking at this beautiful scenery and trying to ignore the terrible dialogue of this movie and thinking, oh, you know what that reminds me of? Oh, you know what I would use that scene for? Look at those cool buildings. Like, I would love to put characters there. And that's where my book Silver and the Blood came from. But Blood and Chocolate, this novel, I can't tell you how much I love it. And it meant so much to me. And it's the dumbest thing. It's not like it's super inspiring. It's not like there are pull quotes that I'm going to embroider on a pillow or, put on the wall above my desk so that for the rest of my life I can be inspired. But this is the kind of book that I wanted to write at the time that I found it as well. It's like, this is a teen coming of age story with werewolves. It was just perfect to me at the time, and it's still perfect to me, and I love this book. So this is my big recommend this week. But also honorable mentions of books that I strangely no longer have in my home and can't find copies of. Um, so I will not be able to show you a copy. I have tried doing, sorry, I'm trying to quickly Google because so that I don't forget the author's name, but I've tried putting up slides, and things like that in like one of my early videos, and it just didn't seem like it was worth it. But Low Red Moon by Ivy Devlin is a really great werewolf novel. Um, Highly recommend that one. It is young adult. I think what happened was that got the I got an arc, and I think I passed it on to someone because I was like, oh my gosh, this book is so good. You've got to read this. So I think that's what happened with that. Um, and then Shiver by Maggie Stiefvater. Such a good book, such a fun series. The Wolves of Mercy Falls series. Trying to pull up a picture so I can hold it up to the camera. This is a more recent cover. I've never seen this one before, and it's kind of faded out. Sorry. But anyway, Shiver by Maggie Stiefvater is a really great teen werewolf novel, and highly recommend that. And those are my big recommends that I don't have pictures of to show you, or don't have the physical books to show you, but please go out and read some fun werewolf literature this spooky season. Those are my recommendations for this week. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you all next week. What will we be talking about? Who can say? Possibly ghosts,